Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men In Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Mike Freeman.
What's happening, Tyler Gould?
We had the opportunity tonight to spend some time with your friend, Nate Ward, who I am proud to call my friend after spending a little time with him. Had a blast, some great nuggets in there and some great sports talk as well for all you sports fans out there. But it was a good time, man. It was a good time. What were your takeaways with Nate?
Nate is living a life awake at the wheel. I think a lot of times we think maybe we start drifting. He makes a reference to train tracks, and we feel like our lives are out of our control because the course is set. And he shares insight and some thoughts that led to some crazy significant changes in his life, in his family life, in his professional life. And I just loved getting kind of the autopsy on those decisions. You know, we hear from a distance that, you know, Nate's doing some things up in Idaho, and it was just wonderful to connect with him, because when I heard the things that he was doing, I saw evidence of a Richest Men in Town life. I saw evidence of somebody who was not okay with his current circumstances and took matters into his own hands. And I think our listeners are really going to resonate with the feelings that Nate shares and the will to live his life on his terms. Just a few takeaways.
Oh, for sure. I think we've all been in Nate's shoes and questioned some things. And I love that he's a man of action. I mean, for crying out loud, he bought a tractor and he's building a baseball field in his back 40, right? So life is good for Nate. But no, there was a lot of good stuff in there. I love the idea that grandma's list. I love that reference and
the lessons we can learn from hospice. We really need to have a show on that.
Yeah,
he gets really personal and letting us in on, as a doctor, he does end of life care. And the lessons that he's learned from a couple of those experiences were powerful. I loved the self-talk and the emphasis that he has on being aware of ourselves, being kind to ourselves, loving ourselves, and then applying that to those two great commandments, right? Yeah. We can't love our neighbor as ourselves if we're not exercising that kindness to ourselves. So, I thought, I think we mentioned it a couple of times in the episode. Truly tonight we were the students.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought it was powerful tonight, and I think that there's some good laughs in there too with Nate. I thought that he just has a great sense of humor, and you could tell that he has a love for life. And
he attacks all aspects of that.
Yeah.
All aspects of his life with that same energy and that same enthusiasm. He is passionate about things he does. He's so passionate. He's like the number one Mariners fan in the state of Idaho.
Yeah. And I would say for anyone, it's tough to be a Mariners fan. So, that takes some energy, man. So good for Nate. But listen, I think that, when if you're listening to this podcast and you're getting ready to jump into the Nate Ward episode, there's some good stuff in here. I hope that there's some things that resonate with our listeners that they want to apply and start seeing some results in their own lives as Nate did with his.
If they're on the fence with anything, if they're on the fence struggling with a decision to make with some aspect of their life that may involve some change, listening to Nate Ward is going to push them.
Absolutely. I love it. Look, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and enjoy Nate Ward on the Richest Men in Town.
I'm on the eve of something. So so my day looks like this. I wake up at dark 30.
Yeah.
And my daughter's life is packed in my car. And I proceed to, wake up the kids, kind of like Christmas morning, only not so fun.
Yeah, just depressing.
Because we're about to get in a car and drive 12 hours. She's got to say goodbye to the family dog, right? Which I'm on record saying she'll miss the dog more than she'll miss me.
That's definitely the vibe they want to give you.
And then we drive 12 hours. Right? We pull in and, so the gut has some Mickey D's in it and some Wendy's in it. And I'm just thinking, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to have a heart attack right here, right now. So to save my heart, Tyler Gould, tell me something good, man. You got something good. You got good news. You can tell me anything. I'll take it.
So let me just break this down for you and anyone who hasn't experienced this. Okay, you my daughter.
Let's back up. You haven't experienced this.
No, I haven't experienced this, but I'm in the throes of it, right?
Okay.
And and it's an interesting thing. So my daughter has been, as you know, been serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the past 18 months in the Salem, Oregon mission, and she has done some things that are amazing and been involved in some amazing things. And I'm super proud of her. I'm super proud of perseverance and just doing hard things. And she's coming home. 18 months has come to an end. And it's weird because I'm in this weird spot where I can relate, because I served a mission as well a lifetime ago. And I can relate to her emotions. And so she's coming back, man. And I'm excited for her. I'm excited to see her. I'm excited to be with her again for 2.5 days before she goes off to college. But, but at the same time, I was reading her honorable release letter that the mission president sent us. And, it's emotional, man. It's emotional. So I sent her my last email the other day that I'll ever send her as a missionary, and tried to give her some kind of sage advice, but I was probably crying as I was typing it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because you and I are both on the eve of an end of something, right? In the beginning of something else. Yep. And so here I am in Provo, Utah. We're about to drop off our daughter for college. Move-in day is Friday, Saturday. I don't know. I'm just driving. I'm driving. I'm just the driver. You're the chauffeur. And who knows? And I would be tickled pink if. Is that a phrase? Can we say that? Is that?
I mean, I think my grandparents used to say that. I don't know. I mean, but, you've dropped Paul Harvey before, so just keep.
I would be ecstatic. I'd be ecstatic if down the road my daughter chose to do what your daughter did. But my daughter's got the pen in her hand and she's about to write the rest of her life, right? Like, she's leaving the home and she's about to become her person. She's about to unfold that person to the world. And we're excited to see what that looks like. But, man, it's like, dang, here we go.
Well, the good news is, and here's the good news in all seriousness, is that, you haven't had control over your daughter for some time. Right? She's lived in your house, but she's been making her decisions and she's been doing her thing, right?
True story.
And so the good news to that is that you've been watching this person who's been making their own decisions and doing their thing, and they've been doing it the right way, So I think there's some confidence and some solace that we can take in that fact when we watch that, because I think that what you've seen over the last probably 2 years is close to how that will continue to go.
Here's where this is really cool.
Yeah.
Do you understand that I think that we're about to record like episode 18 of the Richest Men in Town, right? Let that sink in a little bit.
Yeah.
That's we came out of the gate for our listeners with 5 or 6 things, but that's 4 months of our life.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it is we've been talking to these great folks. We've been talking to the people about their lives, and they've been telling us about, hinge moments and where things changed for them. And so many of the men that we admire had hinge moments right about where your daughter is and where my daughter is in their life.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. I was reading, I don't know if you get Sydney's emails or not, but I was reading her last email that she sent, and I think it got sent out today, but she makes a reference to a spot in the Book of Mormon where it talks about the waters of Mormon. Did you read that? No? Come on. I'm just kidding, man. I'm just kidding.
I drove 12
for 12
today.
hours. Yeah. So listen, she makes this comment about the waters of Mormon and how it was a sacred place for the people that participated in the ordinance there at that place. And her thought was that the waters of Mormon was just a pond, or it was just a lake, until they made it that sacred place. And so, yeah, she talks about, hey, I've had this sacred experience. Oregon is now one of my waters of Mormon, and I will continue to find those sacred places. I thought that was a cool thought, man. I just thought that it kind of reminded me of our conversation with Rajiv. I'll go back to that, about sacred moments, right? Rajiv talked about listening to music and having a sacred experience, and a podcast having a sacred experience, and being with his kids and having a sacred experience. And I loved reading that email, and I just thought, I got to do better about recognizing the sacred experiences that we have.
Can we play in that a little bit? Like, I think that's quite possibly a new Richest Men in Town question that we might ask, right? Along with those hinge moments,
right?
As you look back on your life, are there sacred places?
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
In churches and temples, and I would imagine grave sites could be sacred, right? But I mean, I'm also thinking of some of the experiences that I've had, and I had a moment behind a shed on my knees saying a prayer, right?
Yeah.
I had a moment on a walk one night, sitting on a stump looking over a city.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a cool thing. Like, that's just a normal place. But then you pass through that and you have an experience where all of a sudden that place is now holy to you. Yeah.
I love that thought too. Made me think of, Palmyra, right? And just the sacred nature of that. And it was a grove. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm even thinking now, like, I'm getting super geeky on this, and I'm thinking of, like, the place where Kelly and I had our first kiss, right? In the long storied love story of Mike and Kelly Freeman, that would be kind of a sacred place, right?
Yeah.
A whole lot of things have a genesis from that moment.
Yeah, I think, like, with the place where Ricky first rejected me, that was that was sort of the beginning of I like that thought, though. I think that if you and I sat here and we just were quiet for 5 minutes and making some notes, we could compile a list of places that we would consider sacred that had an impact. And it's funny because those places, like you said, they're pedestrian, if you will. I mean, you think about, I can think about a moment on a soccer field after a game, with my friends, and I can think about being in the living room of somebody's house and just late at night having a conversation with them about things that were meaningful back when I was afraid to talk about meaningful things. You know what I mean? And that sort of being like a breakthrough moment. So yeah, I think that it's cool. It's cool to think about, that list could be pretty long. And I like the idea of continuing to search out those things, recognizing them for what they are as they come.
So when your daughter comes back, right? As your daughter comes home tomorrow, we're working on our life plan, right? What do you? Let's talk dreams a little bit. What do you dream for her? What do you want for her?
Yeah, I just want I want her to be happy with her. I want her to be happy with who she is, and I want her to embrace who she is, flaws and all. Right? Because I think that when we can become comfortable and confident in our own skin and with who we are, we can accomplish pretty much anything. And, it doesn't matter to me, if Sydney goes on and becomes a brain surgeon and cures cancer or decides to have a couple of kids and stay at home and not work at all. I think as long as she's got her heart pointed in the right direction, and she's surrounding herself with good people, she's going to impact people for good. And I'm happy about that. Like, honestly.
Can we be real for 1 second?
Yeah.
You mentioned, comparing or going through this as a parent, but having some comfort in knowing what you went through when you got home, right?
Yeah.
And that experience. What was that experience like coming home?
I mean, it was heart-wrenching coming home. I think coming home for me was like, I didn't want to leave, right? I wanted to stay where I was at and keep doing what I was doing because I was comfortable in doing that. But when I got home, it's weird. I don't think I had anybody that was saying, okay, Tyler, you're home now and here's some direction for you, right? I think you can relate to that, Mike. It was sort of like, I made the decision to go on my own. I came home on my own, and then I looked out into the future and just saw kind of a fog, and I just stepped into the fog on my own. You know what I mean? And so for that, I felt like when I got home, I was running 100 miles an hour. Like I was just trying to accomplish things and do things and have fun and whatever. But now my daughter's home, and I'm trying to like shine a light through the fog a little bit, and say, hey, it's not as crazy and confusing as you might think it is. Right?
So yeah, let me break this down for you really quick. My experience coming home from my mission was the closest thing to depression I've experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Right. You think about it, 2 years of dedicating yourself to Christian service, right? Dedicating yourself to helping other people. And all of a sudden you come home and now the other people, they're a hemisphere away.
Yeah.
And you're left kind of with you and your thoughts. And I love that word direction, right? Because you're supposed to have it all figured out. Maybe, I don't know. Like there's this myth, right? That you come home and it's like on to the next thing. And here you go. It's like, I got nothing figured out. I haven't even thought of myself for 2 years. And now everybody's asking me what I'm doing. Right.
And I think that's the big, that's a big issue in my mind. Right. Cause I felt the same way. Come home, move on to the next thing. Got to accomplish that. I've got all these things that I have to check the boxes on, and I've told my daughter, look, you come home and you're in charge. You're in charge of everything. And you move at your pace. And the reality is if you get married in not in a year, dude, like longer than that. But you get married in over a year, or you get married in 5 years, it doesn't matter, like you're in charge. And don't get caught up in the cultural mythology of I have to do these 10 things in order to be considered successful. It doesn't matter. And welcome to Nate Ward, right?
Hey,
Nate Ward, welcome to the Richest Men In Town, brother. How are you?
What's up, guys? I'm good.
All right. Awesome. Hey, little background. We got to get some stink off of us, right? I mean, we started this thing kind of in a wah-wah mood, just looking at the social injustice that again, we continue to wrestle with as a country. And again, that's not necessarily the lane of this podcast to have political or social commentary, but come on, right? Like, come on. And then we're looking for some levity, we're looking for some relief, and you know, the very thing that gives us that so many nights, sport in some way, shape, or form, some of that starts to bleed into that world, right? And we're just scratching our head. And then Tyler and I are both sitting on the eve of something kind of big. I drove 12 hours today to get to Provo just to drive away with one less kid, right? Like that's kind of weird. And then Tyler's daughter comes home from her mission in Salem, Oregon, tomorrow, right? What time is she coming in?
I think 3:40. 3:40.
3:40.
Uh-huh.
So for the folks that are that's just a foreign world. Imagine you haven't had personal contact with your kid for 18 months, right?
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen tomorrow. That gap is going to be closed up tomorrow for the Gould family. So crazy, wonderful day. It's going to be fantastic. It's
exciting, man.
It's going to be something, right?
So
Nate, that's what we're coming into, right? The conversation ranged from what the F are we doing in this country, right? Where another black man is shot 7 times in the back and there's no video evidence this time or whatever, right? Whatever. But I went to Tyler and said, tell me something good, man. My heart's heavy. Give me something good. And he delivered, man. He's got some good news happening tomorrow. And that's exciting. But then we even got into talking about how normal places in life turn into sacred places when we pass through them and have special moments. Right? So then we got kind of nostalgic and we were reminiscent about some of those experiences, right? So Nate Ward, how are you today, brother?
Guys, I am good.
So Nate, you represent a first. We like to celebrate first. We've only been doing this for a handful of months, but we do have a first. I believe Nate Ward is our first guest on this podcast that owns a tractor.
Oh yeah.
That's a safe
That happened. Guys, that happened. I never thought in my life until about 2 years ago that I would own a tractor. I shopped for a tractor. Like, you know, when you're, okay, my wife likes to go to bed at like 8:00, right? So I have all night shop. I just do spend time doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. There
were about 3 months that I spent most of those hours like hemming and hawing over what tractor to buy. In fact, this is true. I subscribed to a YouTube channel called Tractor Time with Tim. And other people, a guy, Tim, out of the Midwest, we should send him this link just so he knows he gets a shout out.
We're dropping that in the show notes.
Tractor Time with Tim. If you want to know the ins and the outs of a John Deere 1025R, that's the go-to place.
So Nate, I just got to ask, is that something you drop in your wish list on Amazon or like how, I mean?
No, but like I did have to go buy like a bucket, right? Like a front end bucket, like front end loader. I drove to Oregon to buy a loader for my tractor. Like it's deep now. I'm like a farmer now.
So I think that this will be more striking as we learn a little bit more about you, right? You are obviously not a farmer. We love farmers and we love to have farmers because we know that there are farmers out there living rich lives, but you are a doctor.
I am a doctor.
I'm
not a farmer. I'm as far away from being a farmer as I think you can get and still own a tractor.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So no, I guess I am a doctor. It's funny. Like years ago, that probably defined so much of what I thought about myself. Cause you spend so much time training for it and that, you kind of wear it, and like, yes, I'm a doctor, but it's funny over time, like I think of myself less and less actually as a doctor and hence the 5 acres and other stuff we got going on.
We'll get into that, but Tyler, I'm excited to have Nate on. Nate is mine, right? Nate is my guest. I hate to say spent some time in Reading, because that almost sounds like a prison term, right? But
I think I did ask you the other night. I think I asked you the other night, how long did you have to be in Reading? I think I asked you that.
Yeah,
hey, I did 10 years, bro. I get you.
So Nate has been Nate left Reading a while back, and Nate has been up in Idaho, and I've kept in touch via social media and just mutual friends, and I started hearing some interesting things about what the wards were up to, and I just had to reach out, and I had to get him on the podcast so that we can get a little glimpse into the ward family, Idaho style. But we knew each other back in Reading handful of years ago. You did your residency there.
I did, yeah. We had moved from we left BYU to go to Iowa. We lived in Des Moines, Iowa, where I did medical school for 4 years at Des Moines University, and then looked all over the kind of Western U.S. of where to go. And this is, I know we'll probably get to this, but this is exactly one of those kind of moments. Actually happened in Reading. Reading was number 9 in my preseason top 10 list.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
AP top 25 preseason poll. Reading was 9 out of 10. Spent all this time researching all these programs, right? And actually, I went to Klamath Falls up north, and Reading in one trip, 9 and 10. And this is funny. Like I knew what my plan was, where I was going. I pulled into the parking lot of the hospital, Mercy Hospital in Reading at the time, Dignity, that hospital there. Pulled in to the program building parking lot, and I knew it was like, this is it. You should be here.
So just like that, number 9
that was
it.
It was, and I can count with 3 fingers how many of those moments I've had of like, I'm supposed to be here, but there it was. I didn't even I hadn't even gotten in the building. I didn't meet anybody yet, and I was like, well, this is it. And this is the truth. You know, Carrie, I was like, how am I going to tell her? This is not even close to where she thinks she wants to be. And at the end of the day, I sat there and called her from the parking lot and was like, hon, I don't know what this is about, but we are moving to, I can spell Reading, I think, before that moment. And we went to Reading, and it worked out. And it was, there were people definitely there that we needed to meet and become friends with, and that experiences in my training, and who knows why, but it was one of those few moments of like, you are to be there.
Well, we still get together. Friends in low places still get together and reminisce about the silent library night at your place, right?
I forgot.
Is that still a show? Our listeners aren't even going to know what that is.
If you don't know, look it up.
They've moved on to teen pregnancy TV shows now. You know, they're moving up in their programming. Hey, Nate, let me ask you this though. So I like, first of all, you said you had about 3 of those moments. So I want to make sure we cover all 3 of those tonight, right?
All right.
We talk about those, but look, I loved Reading too. So I joke about it. It was 10 years and 10 of the richest years, I think, of my life because of people, right? Wasn't a fan of the heat. Wasn't a fan of the wildfires. Wasn't a fan of the rain.
Okay, stop. You liked it though.
But I love the people. And some of those people, you know, I'll take.
This episode is brought to you by the City of Reading Office of Tourism.
Chamber of Commerce. I will. The people are phenomenal. Not were, but they are phenomenal, and a big part of shaping who I am. But let's talk. Let's back up from Reading for a moment, and let's start at the top. Just give us some background about you and where you're from and your family growing up, and let's start there.
You got it. So I Born in Idaho though, so I'm a local back home.
Oh, so your local boy comes home.
Yeah, this is it.
Nice,
cool.
They actually have a parade for you in Idaho when you make it back.
I've heard about that. I'm jealous.
No, so born there, and then I am the second of 4. So, but I'm the only boy.
Okay.
So that plays in here.
Yeah.
3 sisters, and then my dad ended up getting a job with Hershey Chocolate, which kind of as he moved up, it moved us around, and so we spent time in Utah and in Colorado, but then mostly up in Seattle. So junior high school, we lived up just south of Seattle in Covington, Washington, and then I went off to school, went to BYU, and then didn't really want to be honest, but I did. And then when I went to BYU, my family moved to Arizona, to Mesa, and then I did a year of school there at BYU, and then served a mission in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. Actually, back one step. So that first freshman year in the dorms, Helaman Hall, I met Carrie, my wife.
Nice.
Yeah.
So talk to me about growing up with 3 sisters. Come on now. I got 4 sisters, so I know all about it.
Gosh, it's funny. Like, I really thought like the payment for having 3 sisters is just to have a bunch of boys, right? You just deal with all those girl stuff everywhere, smelly, perfumey, everything, all over the place. And then I ended up having 3 daughters. But back to that, like, yeah, it was good. My parents, they expected, I think, a lot of me, because of that. Only boy, I had a lot of responsibility to one of the older 2 siblings too. So kind of fell on me and my older sister some, but I have no complaints about like my growing up. Meaning like things were good. I didn't know any different. Great friends in junior high and high school. Me and my siblings got along. Things weren't perfect, definitely at home. They never are.
Sure.
We had struggles there, but
yeah, but you probably had some chocolate laying around the house, right?
Okay, so there you go. So my dad would get shipments, right, to our house of anytime a new product came out, or like seasonal, like Halloween, something came out, he would get like 3 cases of that item shipped. It would just show up at our door, and he would need like 1 box of it for samples for his meetings.
Yeah.
He would just have all this left over. And we ended up having like a 3rd car garage of storage of just Hershey products.
I mean, that's the greatest food storage that I've ever heard of. Like, I've got old rice and oats.
Right.
And you've got chocolate.
I got red wheat. I don't know what to do with red wheat.
Right. I got unground wheat.
Do you know what the trade ratio is in the apocalypse for 1 case of Hershey bars?
I've seen movies where 1 square of chocolate is traded for quite a bit, man. So I could see
gold.
That's what I try to tell Kelly. We got to go buy some cigarettes. We got to go buy some whiskey, right? When it all goes down, we got to barter. We got to be able to have some currency.
Yeah. Or have something to allow you to cope through the mess, right?
Well, the third car garage of chocolate was a good start. In fact, it's fun. You kind of when you grow up with it, and that's all you have. I mean, it's there all the time. You don't really think, and you don't even think about it at all, and until friends come over.
Yeah.
Friends come over, they're always like, so I hear you about this, but when do we get to go
in the storage?
Like, yeah, it's funny. Carrie, my wife, when she first like came over to my parents for the first time, met my parents, came over. She flew out and she stayed like 2 days, 3 days. And like, it was the second day that she was there. And she's like, all right, like I've been polite, but like I hate to be but I can't come here for this whole time and not.
Yeah.
Where's the candy? Where is it?
Right. Why do you think I agreed to this trip, for crying out loud, right?
I brought an extra suitcase. Like,
right.
Did
you ever wonder why she was with you? Maybe.
Yeah. Mike, every day. Every day I wonder this.
Is she really
I think it's,
or is it the chocolate?
It started out definitely as the chocolate.
I think it's cool that, I always, I joke, I have 4 sisters and a brother, and I think having 4 sisters, I have 3 daughters as well and 1 boy. I think that prepares you a little bit for some of those experiences with your daughters and your wife, and it's not a whole lot that surprises you, right? So that's a plus.
It is. I know. I still, my male idiot brain, I still don't do super well with 12 and 14-year-old female brains. Like, it's hard. I don't connect.
I don't know.
I miss.
Nobody does. I don't think at 12.
But I
don't think their brain is connecting.
Right.
Sometimes that's true. But you're right though, Tyler. Like, I've been there. Like, I recognize, like, oh, this is you. This isn't me.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah,
sure.
That was.
I can tell you, Nate. One night we were having family dinner. We're sitting around the dinner table, and all my daughters were home at the time. So I have 3 daughters there and my son, and we were having a conversation, and I don't even remember what the conversation was. And I made some sarcastic remark about something that was going on, and all 3 of my daughters started crying at the table. And I said, "What is going on around here?" And my son looked at me and said, "Don't look at me. I'm not crying." Right? So it's a little.
That's that's hashtag girl dad, right?
Yeah,
it is.
Huge blessing though.
That's the benefit.
We're outnumbered.
Hey, can we talk a little bit about the dreams that were bouncing around in young Nate Ward's head? So as a kid growing up, did you picture doing what you're doing today? What were the dreams that the young Nate Ward had?
No, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I don't know if I've thought about that in a while. No, I'm not living the dream. I would never have predicted that my life turned out so far, the way that it has. It really didn't. I was interested in a lot of things. Like, I have never lacked for, like, curiosity and, like, trying to learn things and do things and figure things out. Like, it's probably too strong, right? I mean, I on that side of it a little red line sometimes. So I had interest in all sorts of stuff, but I honestly would say there's no way I would have predicted that I never thought past, like, am I going to go to college? Like, that really is kind of like, well, I don't know. You go to college and then you get a job working for somebody. Like, it just didn't cross my mind. I think that's another common symptom of dude brain, right?
It is. Like, I think there's a lot of us that had no real concept of, like, I think people maybe thought of, like, what kind of car they wanted to drive, right? But not a lot of putting thoughts into how they were going to actually pay for that car.
Didn't even, dude, that sums up. It's like, what's for lunch? That's what's on my mind.
Okay, so hold on. So you're growing up in Seattle, and somewhere you get bit by the mariner bug.
Oh, guys.
Right? So, like, you have a title, right? Aren't you, like, the #1 Seattle Mariners fan?
Number 1.
Like in Idaho,
self-proclaimed.
Okay. Here's how it goes.
Town.
So, I don't have my trophy. I have a trophy that says that I am the ultimate Seattle Mariners fan, and it validates if you calculate all the time I've spent watching and listening to games, let alone on my phone reading scouting reports, it's years I've spent. But this validates it all, right? So last year, the Seattle Mariners do a promotion, a contest for their fan week at the end of the week and of the end of the season, and they pick every week of the season. They pick a new fan who submits a picture and like a paragraph of why they're the ultimate fan. And my wife has been telling me for a long time, like, you got to do this. Like, they just don't know your story, but you would win if you submitted. So last year, legitimately on the final day that you could enter this contest, I'm like, okay, I had 30 minutes. I was like, all right. So I picked a picture of me and my daughters all in Mariners gear, and Carrie was at spring training. So we're in front of the Mariners spring training facility, all in Marinered out, right? And picked that picture. And then what I did is I made a list, like a 1 through 12 list of like things that make me the ultimate fan. And some of them were just funny and some of them were real. And I submitted this list, and then later that week on the seventh inning stretch, when they break away to the sideline guys, they announced the winner, and I won for the week.
Nice.
And at the end of the month, they pick they pick 5, one from every state in the Northwest. So one representative from, all 5 states. And then they were doing the Idaho one. And this is true. We were going to church, and they're announcing the winner, and we have to leave for church. So we're all like Sunday best, right? Playing hymns in the background, and we're like, turn it off. The Mariner game's on. We've got to see it. So we are like late for church, walking out the door, and they show the sideline guy, and they're like, the winner of Idaho's ultimate Mariners fan for 2019 is Nate Ward. But yeah, I have a video of this of my girls all like curls and bows and dresses, and they're like jumping up and down and screaming.
Well, it doesn't hurt that your daughters are named Ichiro and Griffey, right? So that helps.
It does, yes. Middle names.
Hey, so let's get into that a little bit. Let's get into sports is a passion of yours. Why? What do you get out of sport?
Oh man. That's a really good question. I would say I probably get it scratches. Okay, back to the 14-year-old Nate that played JV basketball and pitched and played third, and rollerblade hockey in the park, like the need just be competitive. There's a part of, you guys talk about it, I know.
Yeah.
A competitive brain. Mike, we've hooped.
Back in the day when I had like a decent knee.
Yeah, that's right. We like that. That's what it gives me a lot. Like there's a sense of like community that I like from sports. Like that I enjoy a lot. There's a bit of like nostalgia and history that goes with it too, I think, and memories. That's a lot of it for me. Like I have come on, Griffey, Edgar, Jigger, Alex Rodriguez, Randy Johnson.
Yeah, those were days.
Hey, let me ask you, how has that evolved? What did it give you? What it gives you when you're 14, and what it gives you now. I've had this thought recently because I'm a huge sports fan as well. I watch all kinds of sports. I still play all kinds of sports, even with my bad knees, Mike Freeman.
We should scrap this whole thing and just have a sports podcast. Honestly,
right?
We should.
But I still play sports. I still, I love watching it. But I think when I was 14, 15, 20, 25, super competitive, right? That was like driving everything. If my team lost, I was upset. And now it's like, it's funny. I'm 45. I got an 18-year-old son. Sports for me right now. And I think about my own dad. It's about hanging out with my son. And I love it. Last night, we were both laying on the living room floor. It turned into a wrestling match because I told him, don't insult Paul George one more time. I'm coming over there. And we ended up wrestling over it, right? But that's where it is now. And I'm thinking like he's getting ready to leave the house and go on a mission and go off to college. And I was thinking the other night, like, what does this look like moving forward?
Yeah.
Like,
okay. I can tell you.
Yeah.
Tyler, I can tell you because, my dad and I, our relationship, that like 14-year-old to like post mission wasn't great. It really wasn't, right? I mean, but now like he moved back here. So he lives 15 minutes away.
Nice.
And he's a big Mariners fan too. And he and I travel to Peoria, Arizona, to spring training almost every year. We spend 4 of the best days of the year eating good barbecue, talking about prospects, watching day baseball for 4 days every year. They will be, when my dad's gone, absolutely one of my favorite memories. They will be.
Right?
It's the framework.
Yeah.
Yeah. The baseball drops off, right? The baseball distills out of that. Or, the relationship distills through the sport into this thing.
It's kind of funny because I think now it's like I'm sitting on the couch with my son watching whatever the game is that we're watching. And I love the sports, but I just had the thought the other night, like, I don't really care what was on the TV. Yep. Like if I was just sitting here with him and we were just enjoying, whatever on TV, Antiques Roadshow, I would be just as happy. You know what I mean? Because I think it's like that idea of going with your dad and just being able to connect on something, because I think about my own relationship with my father, right? We don't have a whole lot, man. But if we talk sports, boom, we're right back there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tyler, yes. My dad, I can tell. So I watch or listen to pretty much every Mariners game. I mean, it's been years really like missed. There's nights where whatever something happens, but most of the time I'm listening to it and working, or I'm sitting down watching it. What's funny is I know for sure that my dad is home on his couch watching the game, and I can tell what the score is ballpark because my dad will text me 2-word texts. Boom, Kyle Seager. Like, well, he won't do that for a solo shot, so there must have been a 2 or 3 run home run. Like I know it's connection, and that I can tell you that's what's going to happen. He's off it wherever he is. You're going to be at home, and you're going to know, like, and we're both watching the same playoff game, and you're going to be texting or halftime calling, like, hey, what'd you think of this? Or
for sure.
And saying, like, we communicate a lot through sports, and it's a framework.
I think it's important that we have that discussion because, really in the end, we all have 24 hours and we're investing that. And it would be great to be able to not justify, right? But really make sure that we know why we're doing what we're doing, being intentional with that time, right? Because when you sit down and you watch a Mariners game, that's not a half-hour thing, right?
No,
and I think
Dodgers lost in 11 last night. You know what I mean? It's tough.
It's important that we make sure that it's adding value to our lives. And man, to me, sport is, and I don't want to be sacrilegious here, but there have been some amazing moments that people I don't know that wear the uniform that I love have created for me in my life with my family, right? With my son right by my side.
Yeah.
Right? I remember the moment, and I remember exactly how I felt when Richard Sherman tipped that ball intended for Crabtree in the NFC Championship game, right? I knew, and on the flip side, on the exact opposite end of that spectrum, I can remember the look on my son's face when Russell Wilson threw that pick in the Super Bowl.
Oh, dude,
right?
I can picture the look on my own face. That was a nightmare. Hey,
it says the Raider fan, right?
Yeah,
you want to talk nightmares? You want to go there?
No, look, I root for the Patriots to lose at every turn. All right, but let's not go there, because I'll devolve into an angry mess.
Right. That could get ugly.
Right, could get really ugly. So
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask the question because for me and my son, right, the sports is huge. Now, maybe you're the lucky dad that's got 3 girls that are going to camp out next to you during a Mariners game, right? But is that the case?
Okay, so that's kind of what I was going to say. So back to the ultimate fan thing. You win a trip, like they fly you out there, they put you up in the hotel at the stadium, and you get to bring a guest. And it was tough, that choice. I have 3 girls. My middle daughter is a huge Mariners fan.
Love it.
She has a iPod, and she listens to most games or watches with me or follows up with all the highlight videos the next day and breaks down the game for me.
Awesome.
Say hey, Dad, did you see, so-and-so? Hey, did you see? So my daughter, Molly, who was 11 at the time, I picked her to come with me. So got her Mariners jersey and a hat, and she had, but we got her some gear. We flew out there and spent 2 days just like Mariner heaven, right? She got to meet her favorite player. We got to go. So the night we flew in, I got there early enough to where I could get some box seats. It was Felix Hernandez's last game.
Nice.
So we're 6, 7 rows up, right, from the dugout.
Yeah.
And it's rocking. It's packed to send Felix off. And, my daughter had made this big sign that is in the background of most photos, of Felix's. You see Molly with her sign in the background as Felix walks off, because we're right above the dugout. So, and I mean, we didn't sit down. It was the most exciting thing that her and I have ever done. Right after Felix walks off. So Felix walks off. It's just tears everywhere. I won't admit to it. There were a lot of tears in that stadium. The next ball gets hit. It's a 6-4-3 double play. And the shortstop, J.P. Crawford, who was Molly's favorite player at the time, has the ball in his glove as he's walking off the field. And she steps into the alley and is waving her arms, and he tosses the ball to her.
Nice.
You know what I'm talking
right
you know what I'm talking about Sacred Place, right?
Yeah, Mike. I mean, it's hallowed ground. It is.
Okay, let me fast forward this.
Look in her eyes, though, the emotion and the look in her face there, it is forever. It is ingrained in her.
Hey, Nate, what if Molly falls in love with an A's fan?
No. Okay. I made my daughter's right hand promise never date a Yankees fan.
I think my father-in-law made my wife promise to never date a skater, and that didn't work out. So,
I think that the reverse psychology, right? I think sometimes that flips, and it's oh, Dad doesn't want me to date a skater. Oh, there's some cute boys skating, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's
and
it.
they just go right against the current.
It's kind of funny because like I said, I have 3 daughters. one of my daughters, Abigail, will watch baseball. She likes baseball. It's funny. She'll be like, baseball's so interesting. And she watches it. She likes it, right? Football, no. Basketball, it's terrible, right? And my other daughters don't even care. They don't want to watch sports. So I found myself many times foregoing sports and watching High School Musical. That has happened many times in my house. So you know, yeah.
That's where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, we're past the High School Musical phase now, but shoot, if they had a choice between a Raider game and a High School Musical, they would pick High School Musical. So thank goodness for recorded TV, right?
Before we leave your sacred M's, what would a championship mean to you?
Oh, dude, I mean,
and this is like the huge dream. Like I feel like I'm in a dream segment now.
Yeah,
things that will never happen.
Cue the dream segue.
Yeah, we need some like music.
Yeah,
fade in here. 2023. It's my. I'm going on record here. 2023.
Wow.
So, but I mean, like, check a box, right? I mean, I'm not a Cub, Mike. I'm not a big like life for Cubs guy. I like it, but I'm not. I feel the pain of like, forever. And I mean, we're the only team to never win a World Series.
Does Lou Piniella's squad still hold the record for most wins in a season?
Yeah, it was 2002. I was on my mission. So yeah, 116 games.
Oh, man,
116 games, and they lose in the playoffs.
That hurt.
First round, and they're out. So yeah, it would mean.
Well, it'll be a sweet day.
It will be. It'll be a good day.
That will be a good day.
It's coming. Molly would say, "You say that every year. Every year."
Hey, you know what? We're all in first place on the first day of the season, right?
That's right.
Well, I think it teaches hope, right? It teaches perseverance, teaches grit. I won't use the word faith because I think we dedicate that to Jesus Christ, who's perfect, and he's really the only thing that's trustworthy. If you're putting faith in baseball in a game that, the best is successful 3 out of 10 times.
Oh, okay, right. Wait a second. Let's stick with the baseball theme for a second, because one of my favorite movies of all time is Field of Dreams. Okay, and we'll segue into what Nate's got going on with Field of Dreams. We want to talk about that, but I love the movie Field of Dreams, and a lot of the things that we're talking about here are themes in that movie, right? I mean, the whole movie is him looking to a way to repair his relationship with his father, right? And we just talked about this. I mean, how do we connect with sports? It's funny. I think that sometimes if I go home to visit my parents and I'm with my dad, I really have nothing to talk about unless I bring up sports, right? That's what we got. And so I love that movie. I love the idea of faith and taking chances and bringing other people with you. I sent Mike a clip today. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that because you were driving.
I did actually.
Okay.
I listened to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's got James Earl Jones. You got to listen to that.
Right. It's got Darth Vader speaking, right? You got to tune into that. But I love that idea of taking a chance on something that you believe in that is going to take people to a better place, right? I mean, it's all an analogy. It's an allegory, but here we are. Nate's mowing down his fields to put in a baseball.
Can we talk about this? Because this is what I hear, right? I hear something like my wife is telling me she got an update or something that Nate is putting in a baseball field, right? And I worry about my friends, right? At this stage in our lives, right? Sometimes all of a sudden we're trading in the minivan and we're driving around.
Well, they were worried about Ray in Field of Dreams.
That's right.
But hey, Nate, tell us about the genesis of this.
Yeah, where does this come from? Where does it
start, and how does it get going?
Okay, so, oh man, where to even start? So, we lived in a neighborhood, a not really awesome neighborhood, but nevertheless, It was a neighborhood. It was just a neighborhood, right? We lived in this place. And when we moved there, I knew I was not where in Idaho where I belonged for my life. It wasn't. Great place when the kids are little and they riding bikes and lemonade stands and, could walk to elementary school. It was an awesome place. It was great. We loved it. But I was constantly looking for somewhere to go, property that I can do my thing without an agenda behind it of building a field.
You just wanted space. You wanted,
yeah.
But no HOA, no name, just some space. That was it. Nothing else to it besides that. A place where I could build, I could do stuff, I can mold and create whatever it was that I wanted. And a couple of years ago, it was one of those moments. I was looking for property really for years. And I was on Carrie's asleep. I'm up way late at night. Too late. And I look on Craigslist for property. I hadn't looked on, who finds property on Craigslist? But just looked, I was like, I haven't looked in a long time. And a piece of property, 5 acres, popped up that a guy had posted like that day. And I couldn't believe the location and the deal, the price, and just blew my mind that it was even, to the point where I thought it was a scam. I did. I even got up Google Earth, is this really a piece of building? Is this half an acre rather than, anyway. And I emailed the guy that night, midnight, in bed, on my iPad, hunting, pecking. So I typed up this email of here's me, here's who we are, family. I just want a piece of property to build a house and live for, and do. So he called me back the next day and was like, I have a ton of people interested in this, but I'm calling you first because we want neighbors. We want a family, not an investor, not a commercial developer. We just want someone who wants 5 acres. And I didn't want 5 acres. I wanted 1 or 2. I want 5.
Yeah, they say anyone that has acreage doesn't want it, and everyone that wants it, they can have it.
Yeah, I can attest. We're a year in anyway. So he gave me the buy it or don't, but I got to know right now. So I did, pulled the trigger a couple of years ago. Carrie and I came and looked at it, and it was just a hayfield. It's alfalfa that had not been farmed in a couple of years, so it's weeds and just a big old empty place. And then so rewind about 2 years, we just kind of felt like you either do it or you don't. It's hard to move kids when they're older. Mm-hmm. I moved when I was in junior high, but it's harder to do that as they get older. So we either need to do this or not. And at the time in my professional life, I was an owner and a partner in a medium-sized medical practice and we ended up selling part of our practice to an insurance company. And so there was a moment, right? A window of well, now's kind of the time. I can pivot in my career, which I was very excited to do. We could talk about that, but get out of the kind of the traditional, doctor world. I could take that moment, and also we could take some of the proceeds here and actually build on this piece of land. And so we just felt like it was the right thing and did it and pulled the trigger. And then we went through the whole design process while we were building the house. My daughters, maybe a year before, my daughters, we've kind of let them we push them into sports, but just whatever they want to, you try it all, right? Try soccer, try gym, try dance. They swim, they just try, taste kind of everything and find out what you like. And my 2 oldest really got into soccer, competitive soccer for, I think, 2 seasons. And then it was just pulling teeth to get them to go practice out in the back, put in the work required to do it. And it just ended. At the time they were playing rec softball, right? Coach pitch. And I was busy working. So I couldn't coach. I couldn't help a lot. And that's just what it was. And both of my two older daughters really kind of fell in love with the sport themselves. Like it was definitely not me pushing them. I know it's funny. Like it seems like, well, yeah, right. But it was very natural for them. They liked it and they were pretty good at it. And so it kind of all happened at the same time. And you have to make a decision of like, okay, so I think this is a good topic for parents that have kids in sports is like, what do you let them do? Do you put them on if they're good at something, do you put them on a really competitive travel team that's traveling on weekends and playing all weekend long? And now you're spending thousands of dollars, we have a big gap. Like you have a rec ball and then you have like, high-end travel ball. And I didn't really like any of the options. So I started my own girls softball club. So we have 3 teams, their ages, my girls' ages, and this happened at the same time. And we started practicing at the junior high, and we wanted to fill the gap in the middle, competitive, good coaching, but we're going to stay local. We're not going to travel. We're not going to spend a bunch of money.
Sure.
And this is happening as we're building this house, and we got 2.5 acres out back. That's just amazingly the size of a softball field, like almost exactly the dimensions of what it would take to put in a softball field. And I thought about it for about a week and drew it out, like mapped it out. And I came out to the property, walked it out. And then I talked to Carrie and I'm like, why not? Like, what else are we going to do? We're not farmers. We're not animal people. I don't know how to raise cows. Like, but I can teach softball. Like this, how great would it be to have a place for our girls to play and practice, but also for our team, our girls on our team to have their own place to come and play and practice. And she was up for it. She was good with it. So I bought a full-size used backstop.
On Craigslist?
What?
On Craigslist?
On Craigslist. This guy must have been
Craigslist
like,
sounds amazing.
Guys, like what kind of market is there for a used backstop? It can't.
Hold on. Can we back up?
Yeah.
I know Carrie, and I think she's all about what you're all about, but that is no small thing that she says yes to that. Right? I mean, that almost comes across like we talk about pipe dreams, right? We talk about pipe dreams, and it's like
it's the best part of her. It is. Carrie has lots of really good redeeming things, right? I mean, we could have a whole podcast about her. But the most redeeming part for me in my relationship is she says yes. She doesn't even like, I feel like I have to present, like, here's what I would like to do. And if I'm still talking about it a week or two later, like it's real, it's not just a moment. But if I really am it, right, because I have lots of that too. But anytime that she knows, there's a difference between like, hey, I really want to do this, and wouldn't it be cool if, kind of dreaming. This was definitely I feel like we should do this. Like, why would I not? Who doesn't want a field like in their backyard? Who doesn't want that? Like, I've wanted one since I was.
I'll say this too, Mike. I mean, you're comparing it to your backyard, right? If you went to Kelly and you said, you know what, I want to pour concrete over our small backyard and make it a basketball court, it's a different conversation. When you got 5 acres and the back 3 are weeds, and you say, I want to throw in a baseball diamond, it's probably like, heck yeah, let's do the baseball.
let's do something with it, right?
Right.
But, yeah. So and Tyler, that's a good point, but because that's really what it was. Is like, well, it's going to say weeds, or I'll do all the work. I'll put it in my.
I love it, man.
Very much Ray, right? It was, and we did. I bought a tractor, and I felt like Ray out there.
That's so rad.
Up the land, and we put in irrigation and hydro seed, and I just put in like the top coat, like the, stuff on the infield and the backstop. And my dad and my uncle came and helped me with put in the like concrete in the pole posts for the backstop. And we got a legitimate.
Have you played on it yet?
We have had practices.
Okay.
We've had a couple kickball games, which are super fun.
Yeah.
Mike, Tyler, come on out. You guys are come out to. You got a place to stay, and we'll do a little kickball, maybe some wiffle ball.
You don't know what you're inviting people to do.
Bring
Mike
it.
and I will take.
Seriously, Tyler, he's good for that invite. I showed up once with my family. We were doing some things up there, spending some summertime, and we walk into the hotel ward, and he's got Boise State T-shirts on the bed for us, and takes us to some bodacious pig barbecue, right? Like out of your mind barbecue. And I'm going to take you up on that invitation.
Come on over, guys. Let's do it.
Let's bring some classic, official yellow bat wiffle ball. None of that big barrels business, right?
Guys.
Some official, some registered little league wiffle ball bats with the holes, so you can just do some wicked slider stuff. Let's get this thing going.
I'm in. That's what it's about. That's what it's for.
Okay, so I got to know. I mean, you were talking about, and it's kind of a convergence of a lot of things happening at the same time in the Ward family. But like that professional shift is a huge thing as well, right? So when we did go up and visit, you were in a clinic, right? And you were doing that successful medical practice thing. And the next thing I hear, you've got a field in your backyard and you're working from home, right? So talk to me about that. Like, what does that, what goes through your mind there?
Yeah.
What's the motivation, Nate?
Yeah.
Good question. So I'll tell you and I've had a long time to kind of break this down and digest it, right? Because I think it comes down to a couple things. One is unhappiness. Like, I wouldn't say misery, because I don't think I've experienced anything that I would say is truly miserable. There's misery. I haven't been there, but I've been unhappy. And I was working 12-hour shifts, and I was working 3-day weekends. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 12 hours each. So a 36-hour work week on the weekends, every other weekend, as well as some weekdays as well. And so it's just the way that business, the company ran their business, and it's their business practices. And that's the framework it was in, and I had to live with it. And 6 years in, I was toast. I was just done with, I loved the minute I walked into the clinic, happy to be there, love seeing patients, love taking care of people and working with good nursing staff, like love it. I was worked way too hard, right? It was, it just made me professionally and personally just unhappy. And you carry that weight long enough. And I didn't notice. It's like a drip, right? I didn't notice that it really started to affect my relationship with my spouse, with my kids, with my family, with my friends, like, my faith, my own spirituality. Like it just is heavy, and it gets, and I finally hit a point where I was like, I'm just an unhappy person, and I have nothing to complain about. I have great wife, great kids, good house. Like what's bad in my life? Why am I miserable, just unhappy doing this? And it really came down to my job, and I'm an owner. I'm a partner in this company, and had to make some decisions of like, is it worth another 5, 7, 10, whatever, project out the road of misery for the guarantee of some pretty significant financial gain? or do you cut and go for yourself? And I remember I had sitting in a hot tub at like midnight by myself. And I really had a moment of realization, like, I'm just unhappy. And whatever it costs, I gotta pay. I gotta get out. And so I made a decision then that practice was about to sell within the year. And if I can exit then, like, I'm out. I'm no longer willing to be unhappy for some payout, even no matter what size that payout would be. And
yeah, it's almost you're having to consider the cost conversation in your head, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it comes with a lot of fear of like, sure, what else am I gonna, like, well, what do I do? What does this bring? What other path is there? Like, what else do I do? And I'm a planner and I'm a thinker, and like I don't like spur of the moment stuff, but it
even ties into your identity, right? Like, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Your name's on the sign, right? Or this is how people know me in the community.
Yeah.
All of those things are about to go.
And Mike too, the other point there is, our parents were sold this idea that like, you go to college or you don't, but you get a job, you work for the job, you move up in that business, they pay some money into a retirement account, and fingers crossed you get some equity in your home and you retire when you're 65 with Social Security. And there was this that's just what your life was supposed to look like. And as that still exists, and it's something I think I'm actively trying to dissuade every family member I know that's from that vision, because I just don't think it's real anymore. Anyway, but as physicians, like, I have good friends that are doctors that have come to me since and were like, I thought that was the stupidest thing. Like, you were committing career suicide by just up and leaving this practice that was doing really well. Like, why would you do that? I just recently had a friend come and tell me, like, I thought it was done. I thought it was a mistake and really a really horrible, like, ending your career kind of decision. And so there's knowing going into it, like, I'm going to have to explain to my wife that I'm quitting my job, right? And what are we going to do? Well, I don't know. I had to explain to my parents, my siblings, and other doctors who I'm friends with, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Not only because I know they don't either. They're just as unhappy as I am, but I don't want to do it. And I'm out. Like, I'm turning in my notice and having to deal with the, like, kickback on that. And it was hard to do. I have learned so much about myself, right? From just the, like, step of faith kind of into the darkness a little bit. Like, I'm unhappy. I got to change the direction of my life right now. And having it's not, I wouldn't say courage, but just making the decision of happiness over all of it, over every other thing, right?
So Nate,
over professional status, over, my ego, of like, how am I going to look to my friend, like, over all of that stuff. And best decision I've made since Marianne Carey, best I've ever made was to stop being unhappy because it was paying my bills.
So Nate, define what happiness is now.
Ooh, I think that's broad. For me right now, happiness in my life is having the freedom of time to make my own choices, to choose when and how I spend my time with my wife, with my kids, and having that ability to decide for myself, to bet all my chips on me, on my decisions, on me. That truly makes me happy. It's the competitive part of like, going back to the competitive, like, why do I like sports? Well, when I do feel like now I definitely am 100% all chips in on me now. I'm independent. I work for myself, but I get to make my own hours, and I get to lead wherever this path goes. It's because I'm taking it there, rather than feeling like I'm on train tracks that end in Chicago and you just gotta ride it out until you get there. And
I love that metaphor, right? That train track gives you no control, right? And I think that, so I guess what I'm wondering right now is, how do we translate that into the lives of people that might be listening to Nate Ward tell your story, right? So if people are in that situation, where does that courage, whatever that feeling is, to make the move? And do you regret not making it sooner?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't, because let's start with that one. No, I don't regret it, because I feel like I kind of had to get to a really unhappy spot. I had to feel that in order to have the answer, right? The second part of this is I'm a big believer in self-awareness, in knowing, like, you have to be able, I think now what it took was being honest with myself, like being able to look in the mirror and genuinely say, like, I'm unhappy, and why? What part of this am I responsible for? What part of this am I not responsible for? It's the train tracks. It's the situation I'm in. And being really honest and saying, is it worth it? So if I choose
the trade-off, right?
The trade-off, you have to know, I think you have to know yourself first. You have to be really honest with you. You can't really make that trade without knowing the player, Like, you got to know who you are and your strengths. You got to know your strengths. You got to put all your chips in on your strengths.
Oh man, Tyler, you remember that conversation we had?
And not on your weaknesses.
Right? We had this conversation. Why am I trying to be a jack of all trades? Why am I trying to be this Renaissance man that does it all, when I have a patriarchal blessing that tells me what I'm good at? Right? Why don't I go there, and why don't I invest in that and make that exceptional? Right?
And I think you have to, Mike, you hit it for me. Like that for me was the first piece, is like, and I still struggle all the time with, like, when I feel myself uncomfortable in a situation, or like, was that ego? Is that why I did that? Was that an ego move? If so, like, why do I feel like why do I gotta do this? Like, what is behind it? Like, what do I need? What am I filling up for myself? In order to do this. Like, that wasn't really genuine, or, I still do. I still struggle with it all the time, of like trying to find out, like, who am I really? What am I really good at? And how can I adjust my life and my decisions to go chips in on that part of it? And it's not that you shun and ignore completely the stuff you're not good at, but that's my spotlight can't be on that stuff. And most of us, I think, it was me. When I was afraid to make the move, it's because my spotlight was on all the stuff that, like, why it would fail. Fear-based decisions. What am I not good enough at that will make this whole scenario fail? And I think it's a mindset thing. And I think first thing you got to know is, like, who are you? What are you good at? One note on that. This is, I only wrote like 2 or 3 things down for this whole thing, but this is one of them is this. I think we have to be kinder to ourselves. Like, in our own, that self-talk, the, like, inside your own head. I know it probably was the biggest contributor to me being unhappy. I can say it was the situation, and it was, but I was beating myself up all the time in here of like not being kind enough to myself, and knowing like, what am I good at here? Like, what do I bring to the table that may take me in another direction? And being able to be kind, the Savior, this scripture takes on a whole new meaning to me, and it's to love thy neighbor as thyself. Like, the only way you can really do that is first to be kind to yourself and to love yourself first. We're commanded to love ourselves, and that's part of like self-awareness and forgiveness and great mercy and grace on yourself for yourself. I feel like that's true. So,
but I think one of the challenges we've mentioned before on this podcast, just the noise of the world, the noise of day-to-day living, and how do we check in with ourselves, right? Like, I remember Steve Jobs, Rajiv talking about connecting the dots, and Steve Jobs looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, am I about to do what I was born to do? And if the answer is no too many times, you gotta do something about it, right? But I think that noise that exists needs to be somehow shut off so that we can take time. Because I agree, I think self-awareness is more important than anything. It's more important than a positive attitude. It's more important than enthusiasm, right? If we are not aware of who we are, what we're good at, what we're not good at, and where we're at and how we're feeling about our situation, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that how do you deal with the noise? Because I'm sure it's noisy up in Idaho. Maybe you got some great stars and you got some crickets in your fields, right? But like, it's still busy being you these days. How do you cut through that noise and check in with yourself?
Okay, so this is probably the other thing that I spend a lot of time on, and I've just recently been able to like maybe put it into thoughts, like, words, I guess. And that's that. I think for me, it's like the way that I still hear and feel the booze from the world or from family and friends. I still do. And I've worried, fear of failure has always been a big, since I was a kid, like big issue. I know that is something I will probably always deal with. But the way to like not to be able, confident to make decisions, to bet on strengths, comes from not being able to hear the booze. Right. And those come from myself. They come from my own head. They come from family. They definitely have come from friends. They come from coworkers. They come from social media, people posting stuff, and you're just like, this doesn't make me feel good about myself. Right. But the other half of like not being able to hear the booze is you can't put weight into the cheers as well. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I tell Mike all the time, right? Don't buy into the hype, right?
Don't buy into the hype. Yeah, amen.
Hype, right?
You just can't. You can't buy the way. And I found myself when I'm hearing the booze, when I'm hearing noise and like, it's just getting heavy and weighted, it's probably because there's things I'm buying in. I'm trying to buy into hype, and I'm trying to get applause that for myself, seeking it for myself or for my wife or for my, from people in my life. And that's hard. That's been the hardest thing in like self-awareness, is like not buying into the hype. I am on a quest inside for myself to just not buy into the hype. It's why we talk about like self-identity. It really is probably why, like, I just don't it's not that I don't identify as a doctor, a physician, like I am. I in school, I still practice every day. I see patients almost every day, but it no longer carries a lot of weight in my life anymore. Like because it was hype. There's so much hype, and I just don't value it much anymore. So
yeah,
it's hard. But
well, so you're a young guy and you're gonna live a long, fruitful, productive life with many years of backyard softball happening, right? How does Nate Ward want to be remembered?
Dude, I think about this. This is like my spotlight now is way more on that than it is on, on the rest of the noise, or like my job, or I'm not spending as much time with that. And because being remembered can be hype too, right? It can be legacy, this concept of legacy, it can be very self-satisfying. And, without that side of it, it's a good question. And guys, I don't think I've worked that out 100%.
Well, it's funny because we were talking to
things I would say.
Day. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, we were talking to someone the other day, and they made the comment that, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, right, and you're on the end of the life, right, about to check out, and he said, as long as you got one friend, that's what it's all about, is that you've got that one person that knows who you are and knows what you're about. And it's funny because I've thought about that. I've been you go to funerals, and some are just packed. You got hundreds of people, and you're like, man, this guy or this gal, she had it figured out, right? Then I go to some, and there's like 5 people there, and you're like, man, this is kind of sad. But what does it matter, right? At the end of the day, as long as the people that know you the best and they understand who you are and where you're coming from and what you valued, I think that's the important thing, right?
But I think this is kind of a moot argument, because truly, if you lived a life to be that friend to the one, you probably have a packed house on your way out, right? One of my favorite things to hear at a good funeral, man, there's nothing more inspiring than a good funeral, right? Good celebration. But I love when people say, you know what, so-and-so made me feel like the most important person in the room. I love that. And I think that's really kind of going to Tyler's point, right? You need that one friend, but if you are trying to be that one friend to somebody, you're probably touching a lot of lives. But I think to Nate's point, we're not trying to we're not chasing after a building named after us.
Well, and I think that's it, right? I mean, if you have 2 people at the funeral, like, I'm a believer in this. I've sat through some very sacred, funerals with 2 people sitting in there, and you live your life that it doesn't matter, right? Everybody that comes into your field of vision is the most important person. And I believe that. I mean, I hope I can live my life that way. I try to live my life that way, right? Someone comes into your field of vision, that's the most important person ever. And then things get there, right? I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that. And you're probably right, Mike. If you live your life that way, it's probably a packed house. But at the end of the day, if I'm gone and I'm in that pine box up on a stand and a couple people walk in, I hope it's Mike Freeman, Nate Ward, and Ricky Gould, right? I mean, I'll be satisfied.
And I think you're right. I think it's not the quantity, it's the who.
Yeah.
Right? Who is in the room? Like, can you imagine if the whole town came out to celebrate your death, right? To celebrate your life, but your family was estranged to you.
Yeah.
That ain't right.
Yeah.
So, I think you are right on for, when I think about, that last third of my life compared to the first 2/3 of my life, I think you're right. I work in hospice as well. And see patients and help patients through the very end of life and transition. And I had an experience where two real quick. I went to see a patient who moved here to live near her sister, end of life. She has weeks to live, and she's in a nursing facility. And I went to go see her right when she moved here, and the place is empty. There's nobody there, no flowers, no sign of anybody but her in a bed. And I talked to her, and we had about a 10-minute conversation, and she basically through tears told me, I messed it up. I thought I moved here so that my sister could be here with me at the end of life. And I messed this up. I wasn't good enough to her in the first, 99 of my life to have her be here with me at the end of my life. And now I know, like, I'm going to sit here in this bed and I'm going to die alone. And she did. She died absolutely by herself in that facility, with nursing staff and no family, no friends there. And that, one of the most tragic moments of my life was sitting there. Yeah. What can you,
I messed it up.
I messed it up. It's done. I messed this up because I was not good enough to the people I cared the most about. I wasn't good enough to them. And there's nothing left here at the end. And on the flip side of that, my grandma, she died on her 93rd birthday. She had dementia and pleasantly demented. She was happy as could be. Mm-hmm. That's part about her too. She'd forget that she just saw you. So every time I'd walk in, she'd
the greatest thing ever.
Go, well, aren't you a handsome young man? Then I'd go to the bathroom and I'd come back and she'd be like, oh, well, look who it is. Aren't you a handsome? Every 15 minutes.
If you're ever having a bad day, you just swing by grandma's.
You just keep doing loops and she'll just tell you how handsome you are. But on the flip side, at the end of her life, she doesn't know that she had lunch. But she would talk about three things. She'd talk about, I had 13 kids and 68 grandkids. That's the word she could get out. She would talk about spending time with her husband on missions. And she would talk about her husband, my grandpa, had passed away before her. And she would talk about him waiting for her and ready to go see him. And the three things on her brain that she could eat, the last three Legos, the last three dominoes standing were my kids and my grandkids, my husband who's waiting for me, and the time I got to spend with my husband serving. That's it. It's what she, legacy. That's legacy.
Yeah, that's legacy, Nate. And I love that. I feel like, you're right. It's easy in the world that we live in today, the modern world that we live in, to be caught up in possessions, in titles, in you name it. We can compile a list of things that we think we cannot live without in order to, and until we receive those things, we won't be happy. And at the end of it, it doesn't matter, right? Like, my daughter's coming home. And that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. The family will be reunited, right? And that's all that matters. And at the end of life, honestly, if you guys are there, that'd be great. But look, my wife and my kids, that's it. That's it. I hope that I'm good enough to them that creates this desire that they want to be around me. And right, the whole idea of this podcast, right? The Richest Men in Town is what you just talked about. What your grandma, she just summarized this entire show, which is my spouse, my kids, and my grandkids. That's it, right? That's the list.
It becomes part of your bone, right? When everything else is failing in her, it still exudes from her. Right? That's not what she did. That's who she was. right? And I think that the crucial key to living that kind of life is to do it when you're not on your deathbed. Right?
Yeah.
How can we convert that? It's like, we can be humble or we can be humbled, right? And blessed are those that can humble themselves, right? It would be amazing if we could wake up and understand. Tyler, you and I spoke off the mic, right? Tomorrow is not promised to anybody. Nate is looking in the mirror and he's like, I'm not happy right now. I'm considering the cost, and what this is doing is not sustainable. And I got to make a change, right? But there's a lot of folks that are caught up in a rat race, right? They're caught up on a hamster wheel. They're trying to chase that enough, and they're not considering the cost. Myself included, right? We're all in this. We're all dealing with these pressures.
Yeah. Let me share an experience I had not too long ago, right? So I was thinking about, I was at this moment in my life where I'm considering a change in careers, right? And I was looking at weighing the options, you got pay, you got this, you got all these different things that you're thinking about. And I'd been thinking about it for a while, it was a long time. I'm like wrestling with this idea, and I'm being prayerful about it. I'm being contemplative about it. I'm meditating about it. I'm going to the right places. I spent a lot of time in the temple thinking about this. And here's the experience that I had. And as clear as I sit here today, the thought came to me as I'm asking, right? I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And the thought was, first of all, what are your priorities? Right? And in my mind, I'm like, well, it's my family. It's these things. It's the grandma's list, right? Those are the things that come up. And then the second thought that comes to my mind is, Tyler, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as it's a means to an end to enjoy those things that you just verbalized that are the priorities. Right? And I'm telling you, it was like a bolt of lightning through my body. I was just like, holy crap. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm with these people and I'm creating that.
Well, and I think the lesson there is the alignment.
Right. Yeah.
Living life aligned with priorities. Because I can tell you my priorities, but if you hung out with me, would those priorities, would the way you saw me living my life match up with the list I gave you at the beginning? Right? If I say faith is a priority, do you see me investing in things that are going to build faith? Right? If I say that my relationship with God is important and you see me go through a day without offering a prayer, I think that the challenge for men and women and parents and busy lives is like making sure that we're in alignment. And being aware when we're not, like to Nate's example, right?
Right. And I think that the reality of that is, I'm as guilty of as the next guy. I like things. I get a list sometimes going of, I want that. That's going to be.
I want a tractor.
Yeah,
put it on my wish list.
I mean, I just subscribed when we were talking to Tractor Tim, for crying out loud. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? Like we have these ideas, and to hear in my mind, which was inspiration and a revelatory experience that says it doesn't matter, man. Like what matters is what you just said. What matters is grandma's list. That's it.
Well, and Tyler, when you say it doesn't matter, when you have that experience, I'm thinking of Nate saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a doctor too."
Yeah, no, 100%. Right? And as Nate's going through this experience of unhappiness, right? And then you come to this conclusion that I'm going to make these changes. I think at the core of that is grandma's list, right? Mm-hmm. When we ask ourselves, like, what are we willing to sacrifice for what we want? And a lot of times that in the world we live in now, that includes, I'll sacrifice time with my family. I'll sacrifice time with my wife. I'll sacrifice time at home because then I'll get the things that I need. And the realization that I had was, I'll sacrifice time at work. I'll sacrifice time, a little less money, so that I can be with the people that mean the most, right? I'm not buying my daughter an Audi. We've already talked about that. She's 16. That's not going to happen. But for better or worse, and she may hate this, she gets to hang out with me a little more, you know? Right. And that's what it's all about.
Guys, I think, to jump in on that, like, this is like right in on what I've been thinking about lately. And there's my thought on that is that, like, we're commanded to fear not, to do good. And often I think what was stopping me, and I think your listeners, because we all do it, is this. We take option A and option B that are probably both good things, but yet we analyze them and we fret and we debate in our minds for years and years, and time. We spend precious time and mental energy debating
both finite resources.
Both finite resources for something that you have no control. Actually, if you really give in, you have no control of whether A or B will work out for you. So if they're good things, then you have to put your faith in God and know yourself and decide what to be and go do it and go be it.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, you
make
can
a decision.
You can talk. You can spend years at map charting a course, or you can just get going, right? And I joke about this all the time. Like, I don't think Heavenly Father needs me to be praying about what color pants to wear today, but that's the equivalent, right?
Yeah.
I also don't think I need to be spending a whole lot of finite resources on things that really, in the eternal perspective, don't matter. And there's this myth too that okay, I'm going to get mine. This is the season I'm in, right? I'm going to make money and then I'll serve. I'm going to make money and then this will become a priority to me. But your first example in your hospice is a powerful lesson, right? There could be it's too late moment, right? So to Tyler's concern about, you know, do I sacrifice family time to be successful professionally? And then all of a sudden you get to this successful professionally, whatever that looks like. And then you go to your family and they're like, who are you? Yeah. It's too late.
And that too late moment for her was end of life, but she had too late moments, I'm sure, at 30, at 35, at 40. I mean, there were she, you know, and I think that's a good lesson, is like, and I feel it a little bit. I really don't have regret. I really try not to shine light back there and go, man, I wish I would have chosen B instead of A. Like, I just don't. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think it's positive. Like, but if there's anything I could say, it would be, man, I wish I didn't have the fear to make choices to change things in a positive direction for my life beforehand, so that I didn't have to sacrifice time and mental energy worrying about it when I could have taken those resources. And who knows what things are out there for you when you, okay. And I mean this now. So I say, people ask me all the time, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you up to now? Like, you sold your house, you built this thing, you moved, you changed jobs. Like, where are you? And I really have learned this, that I have more opportunity once I opened myself up to the universe. Like, I'm an open-ended life. I'm open-ended. So what's coming? Let's see it all. Let's see it all. I'm open-ended here. So when I have made that, like, statement to the universe, like, look, I'm open-ended here. So Bring it on. What do you have in opportunity for me that I never would have been able to spend to even consider? I was stuck, unhappy in a situation I hated. Like, but now that I'm free from that, like, I have more opportunity come to me that I can pursue or choose not to pursue than I ever would have had if I hadn't made that decision. And that is a lesson that I really think, like, I'm going to take with me. It's like, you got to stay open-ended, right? There's no,
I love that.
Put yourself on the train tracks and just go to Chicago. Like, you got to be open-ended. Who knows what's coming? And some of that may be challenge. And I know it, like, I feel it. Like, I definitely will have hard things coming at me, but I also will already have in the last 2 years had great things happen in my life that I just never would have been able to experience and without making some tough decisions. So, man, if there's one thing I would say, it's just don't let fear guide your decisions. If you're really feeling fearful about some decision, like, know yourself, make a decision, and
bet on strengths, right?
Yeah, bet all chips, all in, all chips on strengths, and just don't look at those. Don't shine the light on your weaknesses, and just go all in on it. And there's amazing opportunities out there in the universe for those that are open to it.
Yeah, and I think that there's just a certain amount of imagination that maybe we're lacking, right? We're coming at it, and we might even be coming at it prayerfully. Like, Heavenly Father, I've really put a couple thoughts into this, and I'm thinking of option A or B, and He's like, don't limit me. Don't limit me to those temporal-minded options, right? Open ourselves up to looking at our potential, to looking at who He is, who we are, how much He loves us, right? And then what strengths we have.
I think there's
that's the work,
right?
That's the work I'm in right now, is like open-ended. Like, what it costs to be open-ended, right? What you're saying, it costs, like, but I really want A or B here. Like, I really, really, really want either A or B to work out here. They don't work out. Like, yeah. It takes a mind shift to be like, well, then it's C or it's Z, or it's something else. And a lot of the fear of failure goes away when you're open to things.
But I think, Nate, there's an evolution there, right? Because I believe that God is in the details, and I believe that God is concerned with every detail of our lives, right? And so I think if it's important to us, it's important to Him. And I think that evolution is that at some point in time, and I can just speak from my own experience, it's, God, I really want this to happen. Like, this is important. And you're right. I make that happen, right? You get there and you grind it out and you make it happen, and it's there. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. This isn't what I thought it was going to be, right? And then you say, well, okay, God, I really want this to happen. Like, this is it. And you get there, and I think we're allowed to be on the train tracks and then hop off the train tracks and get back on and move around, because then we start to see our vision opens, right? And then we say, oh, you know what? I don't have to be on that train. Because you know what? If I would have been going through the same process at 29, okay, and I receive an answer that says it doesn't matter, that probably would have freaked me out. Like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? I got small kids. I got a mortgage. I got car payments. It matters, bro. Like, it matters big time. And now, right, you go down that path a little bit though, Mike, and you say, wait a second, it doesn't matter, because at the end of it, it literally is grandma's list, man.
Yeah,
exactly. But I think you bring up a really great point. Again, back to our daughters, because it's about us.
Right.
If my daughter goes off to college and comes back some holiday season with a dude, and I'm sitting down with the dude and I say, so what are your plans? And he says, it doesn't matter. That's a problem, right? Is it? Is that a
It's a bit of a problem, man.
I think you're right. I think that there are some seasons and there's some foundations. And I think that the wisdom of what Nate's teaching us, because literally, like, I'm a student right now, and I commend your courage and I commend the choices that you're making. Friend to friend, I'm proud of you, right? And just looking at you, right? You look free. You look liberated. And I'd be betting all my chips. I'm not a betting man, but all my chips on what Nate Ward's going to be doing in the next 5 years, right? And I think that there's some power that has come with the liberating choices that you have made. But you are in a season in your life, and if we went back and actually looked back in the movie, when you went in and shook hands on that original clinic deal, you probably looked at that and saw some elements that might create some unhappiness.
No doubt.
But you probably looked at that and said, for a season, I can do this.
Amen.
Right?
Absolutely true.
And that puts you in a spot that allowed you to then make some choices. And I think that, we've mentioned the word evolve a little bit. And I think that is so true with our lives, right?
Yeah,
as we come through these seasons.
Nate even said, you said earlier, Nate, you said, do I regret it? No, because I had to go through that. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's right. That's with anything, right? If we have that hard thing come that brings us a certain level of misery or pain, right? It's painful while we're in it. But in hindsight, the hope is that we get a little distance from that and we go, you know what? That was painful, but I learned some things. And maybe some of those things are things I wouldn't do again, but maybe some of those things are things that I would just hone and do differently, right?
When I think that Nate looks at that situation and says, I love this part of it. I don't like this part of it. And I hold the keys here. It's my life, and I'm going to take what I love about it, and I'm going to pour in more of that, and I'm going to take out some of the elements that I didn't like.
And I had to get to a point of like believing that I held the keys. And I would say so many, I know the feeling. I know the feeling of feeling like I'm just stuck. I am on these tracks. And can I do this?
Okay, can we agree right now that every person listening to this, regardless of how they're feeling, holds the keys?
Amen.
Because someone right now is listening to this and saying, this is not, I don't have the degree. I don't have this. I don't have that. I have a job. I don't have a career. I have a job. And someone dictates and tells me what I need to do, when I need to do it. And I sign in, I sign out, I get paid, and I go home and turn on SportsCenter.
But right? I think, Mike, you made the point earlier about the need to kind of go through these things and be in a season, and I think that's important, right? I think that all of these experiences will be for your good, right? We know that. I think we all agree on that. And so I think that we do hold the keys, but sometimes in order to be able to use those keys, we've got to get our butts kicked a little bit, and that's the bummer about life. But I think that there's value in that butt kicking, right? We lose the game. If we lose the game, hopefully we're learning why we lost the game, right? And then
we don't win. We don't learn through win, right?
So on the keys thing, like, I know you have people listening too who are working their job and they're like, I definitely don't have an exit. Like, I don't have an option. This is the option I have. The option I have because, and due to who knows what, right? Some financial troubles or sick family member they got to take care of, or whatever it is. My point is, I was kind of stuck not holding my own keys for years. Yeah. Right? Like I could have cashed in. I could have given it, like I could have exited. I could have done that. but I knew that wasn't right. And I didn't feel it. I didn't feel like I held the keys. And I would say to any feeling like I definitely don't hold the keys, like, okay, I think it's okay to recognize where you are and go, I'm not in a position right now to bail.
Right now.
And to chase my dream as a drummer. Like right now, right? But I would say to that guy though, who's like, I'm gonna be a real estate mogul. But I would love to do that. I want nothing more to that. How am I ever gonna do it on a $12 an hour job? Then I think my point is, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up for the position you're in. And recognize that although you may not feel like you hold the keys right now, you got to be prepare yourself, be self-aware of who you are and what those strengths are, so that around the corner, and I don't know how far down that corner is, there will be a corner, an exit coming for you. And prepare yourself, know yourself and prepare yourself so that when that exit shows up, you take it, you fully bail and take it and go with it. And sometimes I think that means working on yourself. And sometimes I think it means saving money.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to financially be able to, when that corner comes, go, I'm stuck in this position. Right. And preparation and just not being afraid of it when it comes. When you
part of holding the keys is acknowledging that there is something you can do right now.
Yep.
It may be in anticipation or in preparation, but there is something that can be done so that when that door cracks open, you can kick it in, right?
Well, and I think too, you talk about being kind to yourself. I think an element of that is being patient with yourself, right? Because look, I got a daughter coming home from a mission, and she is coming home tomorrow afternoon, and she's already thinking about, how am I going to get through all my classes and get the grades that I want so I can get on to the next step, so I can do this, and I got to find this guy, and I got to get married, and I got to move on to these things. And I was talking to her the other day, and I said, look, just pump the brakes a minute, and let's just cruise downhill for a second, and let's just look at the scenery and be patient with who you are and where you're going. You're moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, and if it does, great. Right. But if it doesn't, we got to be patient with ourselves. And I think patience is part of that kindness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up in this idea that I'm this old and I should have this much accomplished, and I don't, and therefore I'm a failure, right? It happens. It can happen at any time. And I would say, to your point, Nate, there's multiple corners on that path, right? Mm-hmm. We're driving along, you miss exit A, well, exit B is coming up, so you'll get there. But we got to be patient with ourselves.
Right? We believe in a God of second chances, of multiple exits, of multiple strategies.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we shouldn't. I don't know who said this, but we should ourselves a lot, and that's not healthy. And it's up against unrealistic expectations. And you talk about that self-talk, Nate. I can only imagine the self-talk that you had, tapping into the fear of you as a provider. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're providing for your family, and here you're having these kind of revolutionary ideas, and I think that one of the skills that we need to get really good at is identifying when that beach ball idea pops up and grabbing it, because so often we push it down. Right? It pops up, we push it down, and it's probably aligned with a strength. It's aligned with a gift. Maybe it's even a gift of the Spirit that's coming to us, and we keep pushing it down because it's not convenient. Very rarely, if you think about it, very rarely is a call, is personal revelation convenient. It's usually a stretch. And usually we change when the current pain in our status quo is greater than any pain that's going to be caused from changing. Mm-hmm. Like, Nate, you were talking about, over time, it just became more unhappy. And eventually you got to a point where, look, I gotta I got to make a change because this hurts more than anything that unknown thing is going to deliver. Right.
Amen. So I have a question for you guys. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
On that note, when you feel yourself not being kind to yourself, I do it multiple times a day still, right? I know I do it, but at least like now can like recognize it and be like, stop it. But what do you do? Because I would love some help and some like something. How do you handle yourself when the boos start in your own head about your own position? Like, what do you do? Help me with that. What do you do?
Mike, you want to jump on that?
First, full disclosure, I probably suffer from delusions of grandeur, and if anything, on the self-awareness, I'm probably overconfident, right? And that's actually bitten me. That's actually bitten me before. But I can tell you that when I align myself with the Holy Ghost has never, ever counseled me to quit, has never, ever told me that I can't, right? Or that I'm not worthy, that I'm not enough. And so usually when those things do creep in, fear, anxiety, I start doubting myself, the room is getting darker and I need to turn on the light. So scriptures, tapping into who I am in God's eyes, right? So connecting through prayer, maybe fasting, but really to me, nothing beats some go-to verses and my patriarchal blessing. To me, when I read my patriarchal blessing, there's nothing in there that tells me I leave that and I think I got this, right? I got this. But I really do think that there's that self-talk. I think that's the enemy of my soul, right?
I like that, Mike. I think, for me, Nate, I just have to remember, I force myself to remember that you've done some things, man. You've accomplished some stuff. You've helped some people. You've created some relationships. Like for me, that's how I get to that point. Cause I'm like you, there's times where I can beat myself up pretty good, and feel that, but I force myself to remember, I look at my kids and I think, look at this, man. You didn't screw that up too bad, right? They're still hanging in there. So I think that's for me, that's important to remember, the things that I've done and the people that I have in my life, And I think if we're surrounded by good people, that's a good sign that things are going pretty good. When you've got good people that are willing to tell me, and Mike's really good at this, he's willing to tell me that I'm off the rails, right? or I'm on the rails. But I think when we have people surrounding us that are willing to talk straight to us and be honest with us, I think we're moving in the right direction. And that helps me kind of get over that feeling of maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm failing at something, So
that Marianne Williamson quote too. I find myself going to that all the time, right? But playing small does nothing to benefit the human race, and it's not your darkness but your light that scares you. And when you give permission to live being true to who you are, you liberate other people to do the same. I just butchered that. But, Tyler, hearing your answer makes me think of David in front of Goliath. When you read the verses, I love that account in the Old Testament, but I love the verses leading up to it, right? They come to him with armor and he's like, that's not my game. And he's like, I'm going to do this. And they're like, you're crazy. And he's like, it worked. Right? And he names 2 or 3 different examples from his past when it worked, and moving forward to this ominous task ahead of him, this unsurmountable, seemingly unsurmountable challenge, that gave him the faith in himself to do what he needed to do.
Right, and then he's all in on his strength, right? And we're right back to that. So
yeah, get away with me. Get away from me with that armor. I don't need it.
Yeah,
and
I'll tell you,
and I don't need 5 stones either.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd be like, you know what? Give me some armor. I'll take it just in case. I'm going to hedge my bet, man. I'm hedging my bet.
Hey, Nate, can I ask a quick question? Can I ask you a quick question? And I'm going to leave the scripture a little bit. I've loved some of the thoughts that you've shared tonight, and they seem to swim upstream a little bit. It's kind of counter culture, counter work culture, counter, like you were talking about how you've got some friends that are in the medical field, and it's not necessarily the way that the script is usually written, right? My question is, what are you reading these days, or what influenced you to make these decisions as you were going through this process? Was it scriptures? Was there a podcast? Was there a book? I'm curious. I'm totally taking a risk here on the question.
Okay, so I have to make a goal for myself to read 1 book a year. So let's start there. 1 a year.
So I'm assuming the answer isn't a book.
Not a book, man. And it's like it's probably the Screw Tape Letters. 7. That's probably what I read.
If you got to read 1 book,
that's a great one, man.
Dude, I mean, mine's tethered and in pieces, but 1 a year, and most of the time, it's another loop through the Screw Tape Letters.
That's a great book.
But that's part of it. He talks a lot about these same concepts, a lot about this same stuff, right? Of like human nature, and I think we're just sold. We're sold. This culture that you're talking about sells us this package, this vision of like what role you're supposed to play, not just in society, but in your own life.
What happiness is.
What was that?
And what happiness is, right?
Yeah, like and Mike, I bought it. Unknowing, and that's the saddest part. Like, I went to college. I bought, when I got off my mission, I was like, well, I gotta have I gotta make X. I had all of these self-imposed visions for myself, that were not, I didn't create them. They were I absorbed them from the community around me, and I never really believed them. They never really they swam downstream while I was swimming up. They felt cross-cut, right? Cross-current.
Mm-hmm.
Never did. But we don't, I never, I'm still a tadpole. Like, I didn't know that there's other ways to like live life. And until you hit a point where you're just unhappy with it, swimming downstream with everybody else, and
ants marching, right?
Marching. Like, I guess I'm getting in line, and this is where I'm going. Sheep,
Tyler, sheep.
Well, listen to me. The other day, I got to tell you this story. The other day, I went to go get some takeout, right, at this restaurant. And you can't go in a restaurant in California, so you have to order it at the door, and you pick it up. So I'd called in my order, and I'm standing out in front of this restaurant, and there's some people congregating, and I asked the guy next to me, I said, there's no lines, right? We're just waiting for them to call a name. He said, yeah, we're just waiting for call name. Well, one person comes in, they stand against the wall. The next thing I know, there's another person behind that person. By the time my order got called, that line's 25 people long. The person, like 10 people deep, is yelling at the person that's walking up to pick up their order, like, we're in line right now. Get in line. And I said to the guy next to me, I said, should we tell these guys that there's no line? And he was like, no, this is amazing, right? Like, we should watch this. But that's it, right?
Yeah.
We fall into this role and we say, this is what it should be, so I guess this is what I'll do.
And my quest right now is to try and identify what lines am I still standing in. Because I know I'm still, I think about it in lots of ways, right? Of like expectations of just what should I look like? What should I wear? What should I drive? What should my house look like? What hours should I work? How much money should I make? What should my kids, what rules, what things should I impose on my kids? Because that's the line we're in. And what things really affect the outcome and what things do not. And so it's interesting because I'm on a quest to stand in the right lines, because there are some right lines. Not a lot of them. But I think there are some like correct lines to be in. And then every other line is to really question and challenge, not for the sake of challenging, because that doesn't do you any good either, but just to really challenge and say, why am I asking my kids to do or not do this thing? You know, regardless of what I've seen or what this culture has laid out there for me, like, is it real or is this, are we all standing in line while waiting for somebody to call our name?
Right.
How much of it is real and how much of it is not? And I would challenge. So my wife is comfortable standing in line.
Sure.
She feels security standing in line, and bless her for it.
Absolutely.
She's pulled me into some good lines.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of balances. It balances your equation, right? If you're both looking to question everything, right? It could lead to some it's like what's going on with the wards.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
so cloud under their crop and build a baseball field.
Yeah, but it's almost like it's like these unwritten rules, right? Like, so are you okay with bat flips?
What?
Are you okay with bat flips in baseball?
Bat flips? I thought you said back, like doing a back flip.
I did too. I was like, where are we going with this?
Are you okay swinging away at a 3-0 pitch up 4 runs?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
With it. Hey, and you don't apologize after you go deep on the grand slam.
No,
on the 3-0 pitch. You flex it. It's I'm a big Bryce Harper fan. I am. I love Bryce Harper. There's a few guys athletes that genuinely stand up and go, what are we doing? What is this line for? Why are we doing this? Like, I love, honestly, in lots of parts of my life, like I genuinely identify and love seeing people stand up and go, whoa, hold up. Why
are we doing this?
Doing that? And if you can show me why we're doing this, I'll get right back in line. I'm fine with that.
So where does your personal faith fall in this? When did faith become a source of strength for you in your life?
It came to me on my mission. I went on my mission because it was the line I was supposed to get in. And I can say that unequivocally. That's it, the period. Like, we were all sheep moving in line, and like my number was up. So like, well, there you go. It's not that I didn't feel like, well, what am I doing? This is a bad thing. But I didn't have a lot of conviction of like, this is called by God and I got to go, that wasn't the case. But I'll tell you, I had some moments, down in South America. Some of it is moments of like teaching somebody else the gospel of Jesus Christ, and others were just moments for me, not at all related to somebody else's experience, where I genuinely felt relationship with God. father-son relationship. And I would say now the father-son relationship is the most important part to me, right? The like way more so than the structure of religion is to me. And again, that's one of those lines for me that like, that's a good line to get in. I know that it is, but is it, the relationship part is the part for me that has the most meaning behind it, and the one that helps me make good decisions and stay away from really bad decisions isn't the line I'm in. It's the relationship, and it goes back to, and I think the ability to like be kind and be forgiving to myself comes from the relationship. Mike, you kind of said it, right?
Oh man, I could go another 2 hours just on that prompt, honestly, because I think something about religion, even wonderful faith groups, right? Ours included, can sometimes become something that it is not intended to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that relationship, father to son, that relationship with ourselves and our Savior, and that relationship with our fellow man turns into something, right? It turns into something different.
I think though that there again, I'll use the word evolution, right? That we evolve with that, because I think when we're in that line, and if we're in that line for the right reasons, then we start to develop that relationship, right? I mean, what was the purpose of the law of Moses, right? You had take a certain number of steps on the Sabbath. You couldn't tie a knot on the Sabbath. It was all these things that was meant to sort of force people to look to God, right? And I think that once you reach that point where you have a relationship, those other things are great. Being in that line is good, but the value is the relationship. And I think that for me, like when I look at that, I agree with you, Nate. I'm on that same plane at times, where I'm like, wait a second, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, why are we doing it this way? But I also know that for me being in that line and doing those things helped me develop that relationship that I have with God, that I can look at now and go, yeah, like I see the value of what I did because it forced me to look in the right direction and figure out what it really is all about. Right.
Yeah. Two thoughts just to follow up on Tyler's comment. I think it would do us all good every once in a while to throw a question mark on things instead of a period.
For sure.
And then even more important, and then even more importantly, as we're interacting and teaching our children, to teach the why, so that they're never following a set of cold codes, right? That they're never following this rigid religion without, at its core, understanding that these things prepare our minds and prepare our hearts and strengthen the relationship.
And we just had a guest on that talked about that. Nick Anderson talked about, he said, we asked him, what would you want your kids to know about religion? And he said, why? I want them to know why. Not this is what you do it because this is what we do. You do it because you understand the why. There's something greater than just a set of rules. When
you say relationship, I think of Stephen Mitchell's account of his road to Trinity Center.
Yeah,
where he's talking about, having an experience where the Lord wants a relationship with us. Yeah. And it's like that with our children. We should get this. This is intuitive. And in our role as parents, we don't want our kid calling every night at 6:00 because that's the rule, right? We want them calling because they want to connect and check in and have a relationship with us. And I think that changes how we view prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just that relationship as well, as far as like, mirroring, right? We mirror for our kids what that relationship should look like with God. And can my kids, can they trust me that I'm going to be honest with them? And when they come to me with why questions, am I going to be able to help them understand it and figure it out for themselves? And sometimes no, right? Sometimes I fail at that. I'm not good at that all the time, but you look at down the road, grandma's list of like, it's that pattern of relationship, that I think is what carries us through. And when our kids are 30 and 50 and 70 and when we're gone, like it's that pattern that I think is what's most meaningful. So
I love it.
Guys, I feel like being full disclosure, like it's definitely a part that 3 girls that I often don't fully get, like, I'm not as patient with them as I should be. And I don't always mirror that relationship super well, but
now, Nate, be patient with yourself.
Always. What?
Be patient with yourself. Be kind.
Be kind. It's true.
Yeah. I think, Nate, that first of all, I think that you've got a lot. I think that a lot of people are going to listen to this and pick up on some things that are going to be really meaningful. And I have tonight. It just really makes me, it makes me think about, okay, where am I at? What's the path that I'm on? And I love that. Mike said it in this podcast. I say it almost every time. And this is a selfish venture for me to be sitting here with you, because I looked forward to the opportunity tonight to sit and be taught. And I feel like that's happened, and I'm grateful for that. Plus I know somebody who has a baseball field in their backyard.
Right.
So that's a bonus. But let me ask you this, Nate. The title of the show is Richest Men in Town. And we certainly, Mike wanted you to be on the show because he felt like you fit that bill. And I can tell you that I agree wholeheartedly with his assessment of that. But what does it mean to you to be considered one of the richest men in town?
I think we touched on a lot of those things today. We kind of did a full gamut, but I think it comes back to a few points. I think it comes back to relationships, and those relationships, first and foremost, a relationship with God. And second is a relationship with a spouse, right? And then family, parents, siblings, kids, that web gets bigger and bigger. But the other part of that too, that I think it takes, is the relationship you have with yourself. And maybe I emphasize that because it's what I probably have struggled with in my life, and now feel like, I have some direction in, and I've been able to make some headway in. But that's the part, if I like success in the traditional sense, I think is worthless. Being truly rich in this world, it brings you nothing if you're truly unhappy. So I think happiness is the barometer, thermostat here of being, the richest man in town. Is how do I feel like things are going in my life, in all of those relationships, and am I happy or am I unhappy? And if I am unhappy, then it takes the strength to not be fearful to make changes, and take the courage, gather yourself and recognize who you are, and make the changes to do the right thing, to become the best version of yourself. That's what I think of, and where I'm headed.
Hey, Nate, I love that answer. And as as we've spent some time tonight talking about your journey, these words have come to my mind. I don't know if you're familiar with the poem, The Man in the Glass. All right, here it goes. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't a man's father, mother, or wife whose judgment upon him must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in life is the man staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but the final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. I commend you for being awake in your life, man. I think too many of us, myself included, sometimes we sleep through this thing, and this life is precious. And that's the spirit of this show, is to remind ourselves that this life is precious, that there will be a deathbed for all of us. And I love your story of your grandma. And thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for being vulnerable with us and letting us in on what's happening up there in Idaho, man.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, Nate. It's been a good show when I don't want it to end, man. I mean, I feel like I could talk all night, and it's been fun, and it's a blast, man. I'm glad that this happened tonight.
Guys, thank you for having me on. I feel the same. Like, it's been uplifting. I've come away with more than I came with, and proud of you guys for doing this. This takes stepping outside. This is swimming upstream a little bit.
We just don't listen to the booze.
You can't listen to the booze, but you also can't listen to the hype either, you know?
That's right. Don't buy the hype, man.
But I'm proud of you guys for doing this. You Tyler, you've said this, off camera before, but you're going to continue to get people reaching out to you who things are said or comments are made or experiences are shared that are going to change the trajectory of people's lives. And I mean, it's the Lord's work, right? It's what we should all be in, and that's loving our neighbors, right? And I commend you for it. So, well,
the great thing about it is there's going to be people whose lives change, people jumping off tracks because they heard your story, man. There are no accidents. There are no accidents.
Right. Amen. And if there is anybody on here that really needs help, I mean, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I know what it felt like to be unhappy and feeling a little bit alone in that. And nobody should feel that way. If I could ever help anybody feel like they're not alone in the moment of just at the bottom and feeling really unhappy, I would, please reach out to me, whoever, if that ever happens. I would love to talk to somebody about that.
All right, man. You give us hope.
You're a good man, Nate Ward. You're a good man. Keep it up, my friend.
Jump on that tractor, huh?
That's right. I got to go mow.
Get that field ready, because I feel a wicked wiffle ball game coming down the pike, man.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Hey,
good to talk to you guys.
Give love to the family.
Hey, have good days tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.